Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for hopping in. It's a great day to have you here. If you don't know me, my name is Ryan Tamanima. I'm a third year radiography medical student based in Nigeria. I'm studying at Federal University of Technology School of Basic Medicine in Nigeria. And apart from medical studies, I'm also a proficient medical writer. I do a whole lot of writing for a couple of clients and a couple of, healthcare companies out there. So today, all med talks with Leah. Hey Leah, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Absolutely. So, hi, thank you so much for having me. My name's Leah. I'm a final year medical student from the University of Sheffield in the UK. And I'm also a content creator, go by Wellness Medic, where I spend a lot of time talking about medicine, mental health, and just kind of giving an open book glance into my life. And I'm also the Chief Operating Officer of Future Frontline, a not-for-profit which works to support and inspire current and future healthcare students and professionals.
Absolutely, that's amazing. What's your major? What's your specialization in med school?
So I think once I've got through being a student, I'm really kind of hoping to go into either general practice, so like family medicine, or
Okay.
psychiatry. But I think probably more the family medicine.
Okay, so could you tell us what inspired you to, move into med school and you want to specialize in family medicine? Could you tell us what inspired you?
Yeah, so I think kind of looking all the way back to the beginning, I really wanted to kind of go to med school. I always knew I wanted to do something that combined kind of my love of science with kind of the opportunity to be able to help people. But I think what I really struggled with was kind of feeling clever enough and feeling that I belonged amongst a group of medical students. I struggled for a long while, really kind of pushed it away and always said, no, I don't want to do this, even though I really did. And I did some work experience in medicine, which I got through my part time job making coffee. And I really just kind of realized that actually this is what I really want to do. I just felt so inspired by being there with people in their really kind of vulnerable moments, and potentially being like one of the first people that they've spoke to about what they're going through. And that's really kind of pushed me to go to med school. And I still hold those values to this day. And then in terms of just why I love GP, family medicine, I think it's just, again, it's that opportunity of being potentially the first person that has spoken to a patient about what's going on, and also building a relationship, that continual kind of relationship if they're at your practice for years. And I just really like the opportunity of having that one-on-one time with the patient.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's amazing, Leah. Um, your determination is driving you thus far, and that's amazing. That's amazing. So you were in final year med school, and I mean my third year. I think you have a lot of experience right now. And tell us, you mentioned about you being a mature student. You know, you've been on this space for a long time. Could you tell us, what has been the challenges you faced, started from your first year down to your final year. Tell us what has changed. How did you, work on your mindset? How did you work on your mental health? How did you find them, manage your anxiety? Tell us so that others will get inspired about your journey.
Woo. So yeah, I suppose I'm in the same boat as a lot of people. I came to uni at kind of 18, sort of young. I look back now and I think, oh, you really thought you were an adult and you were just a little child coming in at 18, and really just kind of oblivious, and all of a sudden you're thrust into a world where you're dealing with people in their really vulnerable moments, dealing with really sensitive topics, really mind-boggling medicine, whilst learning to live on your own and all these things. And I think that was such a big kind of transition that I never gave myself enough credit for. And now, kind of being in final year, I just kind of like, I'm 24 now, so it's been 6 years. I've grown 6 years through med school, and it can be really difficult, I think, for a lot of people, myself included, to not really give yourself the credit for that. Like, I think it's very hard for me. I kind of sometimes sit there and think, well, 6 years ago I was in med school, and 6 years later I'm still in med school. I haven't achieved anything, like, and my life's not moved forward, which is absolutely not true. Like, my life has moved so far forward. I'm going to be a doctor hopefully next year. I'm going to be. I've been able to do all these amazing things, all these talks on mental health and all the stuff with Future Frontline, and I think that was a big part of how I've managed to manage my anxiety, is just kind of making note of these achievements, no matter how big or small as well. And I say that because I think it's very easy for people to overlook their achievements if they don't deem them to be good enough to celebrate them. And it's why I do a lot of stuff where I kind of celebrate those little wins and really just take the moment to feel that gratefulness and feel that sense of achievement, even if it's not what I would deem a ginormous achievement. I just think it's really important. And for me, that's really helped kind of tackle my anxiety, because every day I try and think of something that I've achieved, no matter how big or small. It could literally just be I was able to read a couple of pages of a book, or it could be that I was able to, I don't know, something on the water. I've done something really successful, a really good history or something. So there is no like, what's the word before, that there's no like boundary of what's a good achievement for me. I just try to think of everything that I should be proud of. And that just kind of helps ground me, I guess, and remind me of like what I've done so far and what I'm hopefully going to achieve in the future.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a whole lot of experience right there, and what you're working on. So you know, I'm a medical student. Being a medical student is a full-time job. You know that. So having a second or third party is is demeaning. What I mean by demeaning is it's a distraction for you to be in med school, and you're doing all the things, working or on social media, or you're doing all the second party. So how do you balance social media with med school? How do you balance it, and how do you make it work for yourself?
Yeah, so you're right. I do a lot of kind of things outside of med school. I do, I help run Future Frontline. I have my own social medias, Instagram, TikToks, etc. I help manage a company's social media, and yeah, I'm very busy. But I think it's really important to do things outside of medicine. I think, like you said, medicine does feel like a full-time job, but you're not achieving straight results. Like with work, you wouldn't get a promotion in med school, or it can sometimes be really difficult for the people around you to give you that praise and say you've done a good job, because they're just so busy. And I think that for me was something I really struggled with for a long time, just kind of feeling like medicine could be so overwhelming. You really could, you could go into the hospital, spend the whole day there, and then come home and then study, because it feels like it never really ends. And I think that was the point where I kind of realized that I needed to be more than just medicine. I needed to do things outside of med school, and I wanted to do things that I was passionate about, and I wanted to remind myself that I was more than just Leah, the medical student. What am I passionate about? I've always wanted to do teaching and get people interested in science from a young age, and I've been able to go into primary schools and do talks. And yes, those things are I guess, a conventional, I'll say in like speech, I guess, distraction from medicine, time that I could be studying. But would I be happy? And I think that's the point I got to, where I realized that actually work-life balance needs to resolve around my happiness. I can't control every hour of the day. I still have to be in placement for how many hours. I still have to study for how many hours. But those other pockets of time, what do I want to do with them that will bring me joy and bring me happiness? And it's different for everyone. And I always like to kind of say that I do a lot of things doesn't mean that you have to do a lot of things. Or it's still, if you wanted to take that time that I use to work on Future Frontline and you wanted to take that time to rest, I would absolutely encourage that, because I think it's so easy to kind of compare. But what I would say, don't spend that time studying all the time. I think, yes, maybe if I didn't do all these things, I didn't give myself as much rest and kind of time for my mind, maybe I would have top of the class grades, or maybe I'd be, yeah, always excelling. But that's not what I ever wanted for myself. I would much rather be mentally happy and capable doctor, than be someone who is also still a capable doctor, but has sacrificed so much just to be the best. And that's just not something that I ever wanted. And with that in mind, that kind of just really helped me to push for my work-life balance, because I realized I needed that. I needed that time for myself and to follow my passions and be more than just the medical student.
That's great, Leah. That's really great. You're really doing a great job, and I love the fact that you're balancing the equation. Let me use that word, equation. I love the fact that you're balancing those equations because it's never easy, right? For instance, I'm a medical writer and also going through med school. It's just really not easy like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been seeing something in your country about the NHS strikes and all things. Could you tell us how is the healthcare system currently in the UK right now?
Very good question. And I don't think I can talk fully as someone that's currently working in the system. I am still a student. But things are tough, I think, right now. Things are tough for all healthcare workers. I know we've got a lot of the junior doctor strikes, but I do believe that every healthcare worker in the hospital it's tough. There is a lot of understaffing, there is a lot of pressure, there is a lot of underpayment, and that makes it really mentally challenging. It's really physically challenging, and it's tough. And like I said, I love what I currently do as a student, but I don't feel like I confidently say what it's like for other people at the moment. But yeah, I think what I really like is how supportive I think people are of each other, and that sort of the camaraderie in the NHS is something I think I'm really proud of, to see all the way through all these different healthcare students, all these different healthcare professions. I think it's absolutely great. But yeah, it's been tough.
Yeah, definitely. Because I've been seeing a lot of publications based on the strikes and everything. Junior doctors going on strikes or something like that. So that's cool. That's really cool. So I'll tell us about your non-profit organization. Recently, you won an award, right?
Yes, we did. So Future Frontline,
Tell us more about it.
so Future Frontline was founded during the COVID-19 pandemic, right kind of in the middle of 2020, and I think it used to be so much easier to say what we do, but now I feel like we do so much. But our big kind of what really drives us, I suppose, is that need to be able to make accessible support for people at all stages of their training, including before they go into healthcare, whilst they're in healthcare as a student, and then whilst they're as a professional. And we like to think we're kind of there to support you all the way through the journey. And we do that by many different things. So we have some amazing next gen volunteers that go into schools and they talk about all the different careers in healthcare. So not just kind of doctors, nurses, we talk about occupational therapists, we talk about podiatrists, all the different healthcare careers that we can. We run conferences. We've recently just run a disability inclusion conference, and it was kind of showing people how we can better support people that work in healthcare with disabilities. We do leadership talks. We really just try to provide as much as we can, and we always make sure that what we do provide is absolutely free of charge. As someone that I in the UK, I class as a widening participation student. That basically means that I come from a low income background. I'm the first in my family to go to university. And that makes things very difficult, especially a lot of the newer resources in the UK. I mean, we saw one recently that tried to charge aspiring medics £2,000 for work experience, which I think is just awful. So yeah, a big part of what we do is we just want to support people where we want to make it free, to make it as accessible as possible. And we did, yeah, we won the Supporting Young Leaders Award. We were runners up to, I believe it was Barclays Bank. No, sorry, it was Samsung. We were runners up to Samsung, the phone company. So I feel like that was just a really great achievement. It was a great day.
Amazing. I really love how you do all those things you're doing, and still find a place to balance your mental health. That's
Thank
very
you.
important. And there's someone you work with. I've forgotten her name. I think
Tash?
is yeah. I love her so much. She's
Yeah.
incredible. Tell us, how did you meet her? How did you, meet her to work, in accordance to that
Yeah.
organization?
No,
Tell
so
us.
Tash is absolutely great. She was a big kind of inspiration, big role model for me. And I actually followed her before I knew about Future Frontline. I joined Future Frontline shortly after it had been set up by the two amazing co-founders, Tash and Nikki. And like I said, Tash is one of the co-founders, and I followed her on Instagram. And I remember I'd just taken time out of med school for my mental health. And I remember just seeing her account, and it's so cringy because we're friends now. But I remember just watching her YouTube videos and just feeling like, that's who I want to be. I want to be that medical student that is looking after their well-being, that is kind of having that time. Like, she'd just show little clips, I think, of her on the sofa with a dog, or like just having casual evenings. And I was like, it was so nice to almost get that validation from someone to be like she's showing me it's okay to look after myself and prioritize myself. So when she was actually looking for people to volunteer for Future Frontline, and I just remember seeing the organization and feeling almost kind of embarrassed. I didn't know so many of these healthcare professions that I would be working with in the future, and being like, I need to fix that. And again, like I said, just kind of the fact that everything we do is free just meant so much to me. So I actually applied to do media, which I wasn't very good at, I must be honest. Me and Canva weren't the best, but it kind of gave me that platform in, I guess, and I realized how passionate I was, and I, being who I am, just wanted to get involved in everything. And that's when I was kind of offered, look, do you want to kind of be our chief operating officer? And yeah, I've been able to work with both Tash and Nikki, and it's just so lovely how you meet people. They're both from London, and just kind of having that opportunity to make connections from across the country. And I now consider these two like some of my closest friends, which is just so nice. I think so important to have people. We have people on Future Frontline all across the UK, and it's just really lovely.
Amazing. She's an amazing personality. I've really spoken with her on LinkedIn. She has interacted with my posts and my content and my publications, as a medical writer. And I started following her journey, and she has been an amazing person. She takes her work, her schooling too seriously, and that's amazing. She gives priorities to the most important things to give priorities to, and she's really amazing personality. I'm glad that you both are same too. And so tell us, you talked about something on your post that got me intrigued. What are your advice to people that they don't really feel that they're good enough? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled for a long while, and I think what I always try to tell people is that even though I'm in a much better place now, I still get those thoughts of, I don't feel good enough to be here, or I'm not as good as everyone else. And those thoughts, I think it's very easy to kind of shrug them off and not realize how kind of powerful they are, and all those negative effects that can come with them. Um, and it started off for me kind of right at the start of med school going in. Like I said, I kind of went in the wide and participation student and was kind of there like, oh, I'm probably like the least clever person here. And whilst it starts off as a light joke, I think it slowly became, it took over, and it started to feel more serious, and it started to have like effects, like permanent effects, really affected my mental health, and just sense of self and who I was. So if I was to give any advice to someone that's feeling like that, I mean, it sounds cheesy. I know we hear it a lot, but you really are not alone. There's so many people out there that feel like you do, that feel like they've kind of impostered their way into the system. And I just, for me, what I find really useful, what I find when I feel like I'm not good enough, is I just write down, and I say write down because like it's nice to hold a physical copy of it. I just write down every fact, everything that's factual that I've achieved, everything that can't be disputed, because I think when I feel like I'm not good enough, my brain responds really well to facts because you can't deny them. So I would write down everything that has got me to this point that's a fact. So I sat my A levels, I got these grades, I got an acceptance into medical school. If I wasn't good enough, those facts wouldn't exist. If I wasn't good enough, those facts wouldn't have got me to where I am now. And I just find that really, really useful, just to kind of have that reminder of those facts that you have got there for a reason. If you're someone that doesn't feel good enough, I feel like if you're like me, a lot of it is because you're quite naive to how much work you've put in. And it's quite easy to just kind of blow that off and be like, well, I don't feel good enough. So it doesn't matter how much work I've done because it's not enough. But actually take a step back and look at how far you've come and go as far back as you feel comfortable with. I mean, I could easily probably look back all the way through and picture myself crying at 15 about my GCSEs, and all of that has got you to that point, every little step. So take a moment and just write down everything, every fact that has got you to where you are. And when you feel overwhelmed and you feel not good enough, just take a moment to calm and just read that to yourself and appreciate yourself. I think that's where it gets tricky. You slip from appreciating yourself, but actually you've got yourself there. No one else has got you to where you are but you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's amazing. That's great advice. I believe that the audience would grab something from it. That's amazing. So, can you share a memorable case or experience that significantly impacted your approach to your new placements while in school?
So I guess it sounds really silly, but something that really stuck with me through placement, and it was a couple of years ago. And I was really kind of struggling with my imposter syndrome, really kind of struggling to feel that I belonged. And it was really, like I said, just quite a difficult time for me. I was working on a ward, and I was just, my brain always, for a long time, always computed that to be the best doctor, you had to be the smartest, and you had to do the best exams, and you had to kind of be the best at all the knowledge. So that had always been how my brain had worked. And it wasn't until I had this lovely patient, and I'd just taken a standard kind of history and examined her, and then she had to have some bloods taken. And I did all that, and she kind of turned to me and she grabbed my hand and she was like, you have such a beautiful aura. Like, please keep on smiling. You've really made me feel calm. And just kind of hit for me, I think that was the start of that kind of concept change, that kind of moment of thinking, actually, it's not all about having the top grades or knowing all the knowledge and all those things. That's not what the patient's going to remember at the end of the day. The patient's going to remember how they were treated. They're going to remember how that doctor made them feel. Did they feel listened to? Did they feel respected? Did they feel comforted? And I realized in that moment that actually I felt really proud of those skills that I had. I feel like I'm extremely empathetic, almost to a fault. I really care about these patients and I want them to know that. And that kind of drive, that determination to have that, the communication skills, all of these things that I feel like I'm really good at, and I'm confident and proud to say that I'm good at these things, they're equally as important as having the medical knowledge. And that was the moment where I kind of clicked and it went to me, you know what? You might not feel, I'm not going to say that I'm not good at that because I've got to this point. So my medical knowledge must be good enough. But I know that I'm really good at all these other skills that make a good doctor. And I think, yeah, for me, that moment when she just turned to me and said that, I think it was like I suddenly kind of thought back to all the other lovely patients that have given me compliments in the past. And it was always things like, keep smiling, and oh, your smiles made my day, or thank you for being so kind. And annoyingly, I think they're things that I almost, it meant a lot, but I brushed it off in terms of my medical kind of achievements because I'd always focused on the grades, whereas actually all of these things mean just as much, if not more, because I'm showing that I've got the medical knowledge, but I'm also going to help those patients during a really difficult time in their lives. And yeah, that's just, sorry, a long-winded way of saying that was a real big kind of turning point for me.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's amazing. That's amazing. I'm really glad that you're proud of your skills you can do in terms of the clinical aspect. You
Mm.
know, I'm really I was really astonished when you mentioned that, and that's great. That's really great. So tell us, what is the latest research or breakthroughs in terms of your specialization or your course of study? Tell us the latest breakthroughs, researches that could help to revolutionize the patient care in the near future.
Oh, to be honest, I'm not really sure about any of the latest research. Just kind of going off of kind of where I am now, like I said, I'm in final year. I've kind of had to put down my choices for kind of what I want to do, where I want to live. I think, like I said, eventually I want to do family medicine, and a big reason for that is because I want to be able to bring mental health into the conversation when it might not be the original cause. I think as human beings, we've spent a lot of time sort of not really valuing mental health. And I think this country, I mean, I did some research recently and looked into just some of the effects of the COVID pandemic. And there was a quote by the president of the Royal College of Psychiatry in the UK that basically stated that the UK is in its biggest mental health crisis since World War II, which I think really struck me and really kind of upset me, because I don't think that mental health is valued as much as physical health. I think it's very easy for us all to kind of not even appreciate it in ourselves as much, but actually it's equally debilitating. And yeah, like I said, it's one of the reasons I want to be there in GP, because I really think that kind of having these conversations, or just to check in at the end of a consultation, I just think makes a massive difference.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. You've been an amazing guest speaker, Leah. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much. So what are your advice to, aspiring medical students out there, looking forward to, join medical school or already in medical school? What are your
Mm.
advice for them?
First of all, you're absolutely worthy to be there. I like to kind of think, when people ask me these questions, I kind of think, what would my kind of 16, 17-year-old self like to know? And that is that you're absolutely worthy to be there. There's going to be moments when you question it. There's going to be moments when you question if you're clever enough. There's going to be moments if you question if you even want to do medicine. And that is absolutely normal. That would be the same, I think, for a lot of us if we were in any career, but medicine especially is really tough. And just give yourself that time to really congratulate yourself on everything that you're doing. I think even applying to medical school should be a moment to celebrate, because it is really scary, and it is really, you're setting yourself up for a really daunting next, like a really daunting amount of time, and you really just need to take that time to congratulate yourself on that. um Second of all, I just think it's really important for aspiring med students to kind of be aware that it's okay, and for current med students, it's okay to have times where you feel upset. I used to kind of almost negatively, what's the word I'm looking for? I would kind of get angry with myself if I had a cry, because I would see it as me not feeling sort of capable. Like, I clearly can't handle it if I'm crying. Whereas actually, for me as an individual, crying is quite a good coping strategy. It helps me get that emotion out. It helps me kind of resurface and then carry on. And I think it's when that first happened to me at med school, I kind of panicked and thought, well, if I'm crying, it's because I'm struggling. And that's not the case. And I really just want to kind of push that medical school is absolutely a roller coaster. Right from the start, when you even consider medicine, I think it's a roller coaster right from the start, and that can be really tiring. I think that constant kind of, like I said, I had to start thinking about my medical school application at 17. I'm now 24. I'm still on that roller coaster. I'm still going to be on that roller coaster for years to come. That can be really tiring. So really embrace the highs, take that time for yourself when you get the lows, speak to people that you trust, speak to your loved ones, and just take the more to, like, take time for yourself. You need that time. You need time to rest. You need time to reflect on your journey, and reflect on your current space. And like I said, just reach out to people, talk to people, be honest with yourself and your mental health, and focus on your needs, because you're always going to be more important than medical school. Your mental health is always going to be more important than medical school. Your physical health is always going to be more important than medical school. And just remind yourself that you are, yeah, so much more than the medical student. Embrace your passions, and just, yeah, just really be authentic to yourself.
That's great. That's great advice. I personally, I really learned something from your advice. So I believe
Thank
that
you.
um yeah, the audience would definitely also learn something from it, So, tell us about your study tips. How do you study, to exams? You know, how do you, study to make an exceptional result, so that the audience, because there are medical students that are going to watch this video, so, and also your professional. So what are your study tips, your
Mm.
most valued tip about the study? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I spent the first 2 years of med school studying completely wrong. I was very much I would kind of write everything down persistently, to the point where it would just take me so long to learn so little and so long to kind of memorize so little. And I realized that needed to change. But I think the problem you get is all the exams that you do before med school. I think your brain goes into, well, if that worked for that, then it should be working for med school, right? And that's
Sure.
not always the case. Sometimes it is, but for me, it wasn't. And I knew I kind of need to change. So the way that I study now is with kind of using active recall and spaced repetition. So I use it's like a question bank, and I will do questions consistently on the different topics I need to know. And then any questions I get wrong, I will review that question. I will kind of research, learn around the condition that I got wrong. And then I will make a flashcard from that question bank. And I will then every day just sit, doesn't take long, and just go through the flashcards of questions that I get wrong. And that for me has just meant I've been able to cover every day a lot of topics, a lot of breadth in a short amount of time, which again has just made it easier to have that balance, because it's that there's a phrase they use at med school where it's like, you need to learn to work smarter, not harder. And I really liked that, because I really think that that's what's worked for me, actually, that I've been able to condense the time, but I'm learning more and I'm learning more efficiently. Just because that works for me doesn't mean it'll necessarily work for you. But what I would say is, as soon as you can, be open to learning new study styles, be open to learning a different way. Don't be scared of it, because that's what happened to me. I think I was so nervous about trying something new, wasting my time. But actually, if you find something that works, and that means that you don't have to do as many hours to get the same or better results, then it's absolutely worth taking that time to research what works for you. So yeah, for me it's flashcards and questions, but it's different for everyone. But I think that's like the magic, the magic touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice tips there. So how do you feel, about these questions? You've been an amazing guest speaker, and how do you feel about these questions? And I believe that your response to those questions will make the session an interesting one to the audience or listeners, and also they will definitely grab something off it, you know. And that's really amazing, Leah. Really, really amazing. You have a very tight schedule, and you decided to hop in, to be a guest speaker from my channel, and that's really great. I do admire, your competence. Thank you so much
Thank you.
for
No,
honoring
thank
my
you for having
invitation.
me.
Yeah. So one more question before we round up the session is, how do you keep, you know, updated about your course of specialization, and how important is continuous learning in the field?
Mm. So I think in terms of kind of what I want to specialize in, and I can appreciate, I think it's different kind of from country to country. But for me, I know family medicine is what I want to do, but I'm not going to constrict myself to that. I've still got quite a couple of years. I've got a couple of years before I need to make that decision. And my goal is to kind of just be as open to every opportunity, because I think once you close the doors and you settle on one decision, you're closing doors to potential opportunities that could lead to a more pleasurable future for you, or a more passionate future. So I just try to be as open as possible. And then in terms of kind of continuous learning, I think it's really difficult to kind of, I know for me, when I think about it like that, it feels quite overwhelming. And to think, as medics, you know, medicine's constantly evolving, it's constantly changing. That there's always more to learn, there's always kind of more happening, and just as you grasp it, no, they've changed it now and this is what we do instead. But again, I just remind myself, I look at some of the amazing kind of people around me and think we're all having to learn this information, we're all having to learn these changes. It's not just me, I'm not just alone in that. And kind of there is always in the hospital, no matter what job you do, there is always someone that you can ask for advice from. There's always someone you can go to for support or if you're struggling. And I think just that, again, it's that sense of camaraderie, I think, that's just so important throughout all of med school, throughout all of your journey as a doctor. Don't feel bad about taking time sometimes to rely on people. Don't feel bad about kind of having support from other people. Like, that's a
Yeah,
strength.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I also noticed that you're a mental wellness advocate, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a company also for that. And so what are the specific strategies, do you suggest for people, to maintaining their mental wellness while dealing with challenges, in their various lives? What do you have to say
Mm.
about that?
Yeah, so I think the first part and the most difficult part by far is taking that mindset shift to realize that you need to prioritize it. That you need to start thinking about it, because I think a lot of people that sort of struggle with their mental wellness, it's come from a neglect of your well-being, for whatever reason it is. For me, I neglected my well-being because I felt like I didn't deserve it because I needed to be focusing on other things. And I think that can be really difficult to have that shift. So don't worry if you don't ultimately. I think social media can sometimes be a negative, and that you see people kind of getting up at 6 a.m., doing their yoga, doing sort of their drinking their green juices, all of that kind of the stereotypical wellness stuff, right? And I think my kind of reminder, like my opinion of wellness isn't the stereotypical stuff. It's, what does wellness mean to you? Take that time and think, what makes me feel happy? What makes me feel good? And that doesn't have to be doing your yoga and drinking your green juices. That could be reading a book you really like. That could be going out with your friends. That could be literally anything, but take some time, because you deserve that time to sit down and see what's important to me, what makes me feel happy, what gives me that drive and that passion. And once you've got that, it's then about having that shift of being able to allow yourself that time to embrace those things. And again, don't be hard on yourself, because it does take time. And I think the way that for me really helped was speaking up about it. I mean, I know I spoke to, I've got some great friends that I've spoke to about kind of my struggles and that feeling of not feeling like I owe it to myself. But I think what was also really nice, and sounds a bit cheesy, but obviously I've spoke about my journey a lot on social media. And it's been really nice to hear from people that they've also been looking for almost like that. And I said it earlier because Tash was it for me, that kind of acceptance of it's okay to take that time for yourself. It's okay to kind of do that. And I think that's really important, just kind of being advocates for each other as well. And if you see someone that's struggling, to take that time, encourage them to do something with you, go and do something, go to the movies or something. And again, I say things like that because I really think wellness is individual, and it's what works for you, and it's what makes you happy. And I think if we could all kind of get that better understanding of wellness as individuality, it's not always that stereotype that you see on social media, then I think that's the way that we can slowly integrate it and realize you need that time. And I mean, for me, the second that I started doing that, the second I started prioritizing my well-being, yes, I wasn't studying as much, but I was mentally happier. My brain was refreshed. It wasn't, I didn't feel drained and sluggish anymore. I felt passionate in all areas of my life. And it led to, I got the highest grades that I'd ever achieved at med school, whilst doing loads of things with
Hmm.
my friends, whilst doing fun things that made me happy and not always studying. And I think that's just a real kind of detriment to the power of kind of taking that time for your mind and giving yourself a rest.
Absolutely. I do concur with you about taking rest,
Mm.
and you've really summarized everything. Thank you so much, Leah. If you like this content, do well to, subscribe, like, share to your network. I believe this video is going to touch someone. So what is your last word before we round up, Leah?
Oh, just be kind to yourself. Treat yourself as you would your friends and your patients, and remind yourself how worthy you are of whatever it is that you want from life. You are so worthy, so important, so loved.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Leah. It's a great having you here. Do have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
You're welcome. She's still working.